Liam woke in the dark, heart thudding, but not from fear. It was a sound again, the heartbeat, slow, steady, and completely out of sync with his own. He stared at the ceiling, unmoving, while the rhythm pulsed through the silence of his apartment. Thump, thump, thump. It came from inside the walls. Again, the clock on his nightstand glowed softly. 2:12 a.m., exactly the same as the night before. And the one before that. He sat up slowly, careful not to make noise, as if the sound might flee if it knew it was being heard. It wasn't loud. In fact, it was barely audible, just enough to unsettle him, to make his skin crawl like something was watching him from the other side of the drywall. His apartment was old, built sometime in the 40s. Maybe it was just the pipes, or the foundation settling. That's what the landlord said. But heartbeat rhythms didn't settle like that. Liam pressed his ear to the cold wall beside the bed. There was again, not mechanical, not distant, organic. It had weight and warmth to it, as if someone or something was pressed against the other side, breathing silently with a heart that refused to rest. He shivered, eyes closing, trying to convince himself it was nothing, a trick of his mind. Still, he couldn't ignore how it always began at the exact same time, how it never skipped or faltered, how it felt personal. Eventually, the sound faded, never abruptly, always gradually, as if withdrawing deeper into the wall. By 2:24 a.m., it was gone, just like before. He lay back down, wide awake, knowing he wouldn't fall asleep again. The silence that followed was worse. Hollow, unnatural. It was as though the apartment was holding its breath, waiting for him to do something. He hadn't told anyone yet, not his co-workers, not his ex, not even the barista he made small talk with every morning. It felt too strange, too fragile, like if he spoke aloud, the sound might start following him beyond these walls. But something inside him already knew. This wasn't just sound. It was a signal. 3 days earlier, Liam had first walked through the apartment door carrying 2 suitcases and a potted plant that didn't survive the move. The space was quiet, bare, and oddly sterile for such an old building. No creaky floors. No echo. Just a stillness that immediately pressed on him, like walking into a room that hadn't been disturbed in years. It was exactly what he thought he needed. After the breakup, all he wanted was isolation. No roommates, no shared walls. His previous apartment had been full of shouting neighbors and late-night parties. Here, the silence felt like a luxury, at first. The high ceilings, faded wallpaper, and warped floorboards gave it character, and the rent was almost suspiciously cheap. Long vacancy, the landlord had explained with a shrug. Most people prefer newer units. That didn't bother Liam. He welcomed the distance, even the worn smell of dust and wood. He unpacked methodically, setting up his desk by the window and his bed against the far wall. That wall, without a second thought. The bedroom faced the alley behind the building, and the occasional gust of wind or cats scurrying through trash was the only sound for hours. No footsteps from the neighbors above. No TV static bleeding through paper-thin walls. Only the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of his old clock. By the second night, the quiet had started to shift. It wasn't the kind of silence that calms. It was oppressive listening, as though the building itself was holding back sound. Even his own breathing felt intrusive. When he turned on music, the audio seemed to dull, like it was being swallowed. He told himself it was just psychological, his mind still adjusting to a new space, projecting anxiety into emptiness. He was tired, emotionally wrung out, and clinging to routine like a lifeline. Every night he brushed his teeth, folded his clothes, checked the locks, and got into bed before midnight. And every night, at 2:12 a.m., the heartbeat began. It wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. It simply existed, soft and patient, beating through the bones of the building, threading its way into Liam's nights, until even the silence felt alive. The third night he heard it. Liam sat up the moment the heartbeat began, already expecting it. There was no panic this time, only a strange, simmering tension, like standing at the edge of something he didn't understand. He watched the clock tick from 2:11 to 2:12, right on schedule. The next morning, he booked an appointment. He told the doctor he'd been having trouble sleeping, experiencing auditory distortions. When pressed, he admitted it sounded like a heartbeat, rhythmic, steady, and always at the same hour. The doctor asked the usual questions: family history, caffeine, stress. He ran a few tests, pressed a stethoscope to Liam's chest, and frowned. "Your heart sounds perfectly normal," he said. "Strong. Healthy." But Liam didn't feel healthy. He felt hunted, back at the apartment. He tried to capture it. At 2:10 a.m., he set up his phone on the nightstand and activated the voice recorder. When the sound came, louder than ever, he didn't move, didn't speak. He waited the full 12 minutes, then stopped the recording and played it back. Nothing. Silence, as if the sound refused to be shared. Frustrated, he tried again the following night, placing the recorder inside the wall's corner near his bed, practically buried under a blanket, to muffle his own breathing. Again, nothing. The sound didn't just haunt him, it actively avoided detection. The next day, he asked a neighbor, an older man who lived down the hall and had been in the building for years. Liam kept it vague. "Have you ever heard anything weird at night?" But the man only chuckled and shook his head. "Weird how? You live in the city, kid. The weird stuff's out there, not in here." But Liam wasn't so sure anymore. He began obsessively researching heart-related hallucinations, thinking maybe it was some form of tinnitus or stress-induced delusion. But no explanation quite fit. The sound wasn't in his ears. It was in the walls. Always starting, always ending, always waiting for the next night, and always just for him. On the fourth night, he did something different. He pressed his palm flat against the wall during the sound, and this time he felt it, a faint pulse. Slow, warm, almost human. The wall shouldn't have been warm. It was an interior wall, untouched by sunlight or pipes. Yet as Liam pressed his hand against it, he felt a subtle but unmistakable warmth radiating through plaster. Not hot, just warm enough to mimic the temperature of skin. The heartbeat thudded gently beneath his palm, muffled but deliberate, like something resting just beneath the surface, alive. He stood motionless, hand frozen, until the rhythm faded, as it always did. Precisely at 2:24 a.m., when the sound was gone, so was the warmth. The wall turned cool. Dead again. He didn't sleep that night. The next morning, he examined the wall closely, inch by inch. There were no vents, no cracks, no water stains. He even knocked along it to listen for hollow spots, but the sound was strangely uniform, like the whole structure was solid. Too solid. He couldn't stop thinking about how it felt, how the pulse had matched no device, no machinery. It had depth, tempo, almost a body. That night, the heartbeat returned, stronger than before. This time, Liam didn't just listen. He leaned his ear flat against the wall. What he heard turned his blood cold. A whisper, too faint to make out clearly. Just fragments, the ghost of a voice muffled by time and plaster. He couldn't tell if it was speaking words or sobbing. The tone was brittle, female, almost desperate, like a call from someone who'd been buried alive. He jerked back instinctively, breath caught in his throat. Still, he returned to the spot night after night. He brought a stethoscope, borrowed from a friend in med school, thinking maybe somehow it would help clarify the sound. But every night it was the same. Heartbeat, warmth, whisper. He began charting the occurrences in a notebook, drawing a crude floor plan of the apartment and marking the area where the sound concentrated. It was always in the same place, exactly head level when lying in bed, a spot that had once been patched over with fresh plaster. He noticed, uneven and slightly different in color than the rest of the wall, as if someone had hidden something, covered something up. That night, when the heartbeat stopped, Liam didn't go back to bed. He sat on the floor beside the wall until morning, waiting for it to return. Liam wasn't sure when he first saw her. Maybe in a dream. Maybe just at the edge of vision during one of those long, sleepless nights. A silhouette in the corner of the bedroom, partially obscured by shadow and old furniture. A girl, young, maybe early 20s. Long black hair, pale skin. She never moved, never spoke, just stared. He dismissed it as a hallucination at first. Stress, he told himself. Lack of sleep. His mind was starting to fold in on itself under the weight of the silence, the heartbeat, the unease. But she came back again. And again, always in the same place. Always watching. Her expression unreadable, somewhere between sorrow and accusation. He stopped going out. Canceled plans. Let calls go to voicemail. He spent his evenings and days, too afraid to sleep, too afraid not to. The apartment no longer felt like a place to live. It felt like something he was being digested by, absorbed into, like he wasn't alone anymore, like he had never really been alone in the first place. Desperate for answers, Liam dove into research about the building. It had been renovated multiple times over the decades, but originally, it was part of a larger structure that once served as a private hospital during the 1960s, specifically a psychiatric facility for women. He scoured city archives and local history forums until he found something that made his blood run cold. Room 206. That was his apartment number. In 1967, a young woman named Elena Greaves, age 23, died in room 206 under mysterious circumstances. The official report stated cardiac arrest, but there were whispers of mistreatment, negligence, and even isolation as punishment for outbursts. She was known to complain of an irregular heartbeat, something the staff claimed was in her head. They kept her alone for days at a time. She was last seen crying in a corner, holding her chest. The photo attached to the article showed a girl with long black hair and hollow eyes. Liam felt sick. He paced the room, trying to shake the creeping weight of the story pressing in around him. Every shadow stretched longer. Every breath felt stolen from someone else's lungs. The apartment seemed darker than before, the air heavier. And in the corner, she stood again, closer this time, just watching. That night, the heartbeat came back stronger, louder. It rattled through the wall like it wanted out. He pressed his hand to the spot again and didn't flinch this time. "Elena," he whispered. The heartbeat stuttered. And for the first time, the whisper from behind the wall was clear. "You hear me now." Determined to uncover more, Liam spent the next days searching every inch of the apartment for clues about Elena. Late in the afternoon, behind a warm spot in the wall, he discovered a small, hidden seam in the plaster. His fingers traced it carefully before he found a rusty nail and gently pried the panel loose. Dust and crumbled debris fell into his hands, revealing a narrow cavity carved into the wooden frame of the wall. Inside lay a small weathered wooden box, coated in years of neglect. With trembling hands, Liam opened the box and found two precious items, a brittle leather-bound journal and a delicate silver locket, its surface tarnished but still gleaming faintly. The locket was engraved with an intricate floral pattern, and inside was a faded photograph of a young woman. The very same girl from the archives, long black hair, hollow eyes, the unmistakable pale face of Elena Greaves. Liam held the journal reverently, flipping through pages yellow with age and stained by time. The writing was neat but shaky, each word etched with the weight of someone desperate to be heard. He began to read. "I can hear it beneath the silence. My heart, beating when it should be still. They say it's all in my mind, but it's real. I'm trapped, alone, and my chest aches with a pulse that never ceases." The entries grew darker, chronicling Elena's isolation, the torment of her condition, and her despair as she pleaded for release. There were mentions of voices in the walls, of shadows that whispered secrets, and a haunting fear that her heartbeat would never stop, even beyond death. The final pages were nearly illegible, written in trembling script, ending with a chilling plea. "If you find this, please listen. My heartbeat never left. It waits to be free. Don't let me be silent anymore." Liam closed the journal, a heavy weight settling on his chest. The heartbeat wasn't just a sound in the walls. It was Elena's voice, her pain, and her desperate attempt to reach out. The locket glinted in the dim light, as if pulsing softly in time with the rhythm. He had come to know. He slipped the locket around his neck instinctively, feeling an eerie warmth spread from a cold metal to his skin. The walls seemed to hold their breath, the silence thickening around him. Liam knew what he had to do. That night, Liam lay on his bed, the locket cold against his skin, but somehow alive in a way he couldn't explain. The heartbeat began as usual at 2:12 a.m., slow and deliberate, echoing through the wall with an urgency that made his own heart pound faster. He pressed his hand against the warm spot, feeling the pulse merge with his own rhythm, an impossible connection forming, bridging two worlds. Suddenly, a sharp pain stabbed through his chest. It was subtle at first, like a pinch, but then intensified, syncing perfectly with the heartbeat behind the wall. Liam gasped, clutching his sternum. The room blurred, shadows stretching and twisting as if alive, swirling around the faint figure in the corner, the girl with the long black hair. "Elena," he whispered, voice trembling. "What do you want from me?" Her silhouette shifted, growing clearer, eyes glistening with sorrow and desperation. The whisper returned, soft but urgent. "Set me free?" Liam's breath caught. The pain in his chest deepened, and he realized a heartbeat wasn't just a sound anymore. It was inside him, bound to his very soul. The locket pulsed warmly, as if syncing with Elena's restless spirit. Overwhelmed, Liam stumbled to the wall, tracing the outline of the hidden cavity where the box had been. His fingers trembled as he pressed again, and the whisper came louder. "Find the truth. Free me from the silence." In the days that followed, Liam's connection to Elena grew stronger. He began hearing her heartbeat outside the wall, in the quiet hum of the city, in the flicker of shadows at dusk, even in his own chest. Sleep became a battleground between waking and dreams, the line between reality and the supernatural blurring. His reflection sometimes flickered, eyes darkening, shadows clinging. Desperate, Liam returned to the archives, digging deeper into Elena's life. He uncovered accounts of the cruel treatments she endured, forced isolation, withheld medication, and the refusal to believe her heart condition was real. The facility's records hinted at a cover-up, a tragic secret buried beneath decades of silence. One night, as the heartbeat grew frantic, Liam knew what he had to do. He fetched a journal and locket, preparing to face the past and confront the darkness still trapped within the walls of room 206. The apartment seemed to pulse with anticipation, shadows gathering, breath holding. He wasn't alone. Elena's heart beat within him now. The night was thick with tension, as if the apartment itself was holding its breath. Liam sat cross-legged on the floor beside the warm spot in the wall, journal open in his lap, the silver locket resting over his heart. The clock ticked closer to 2:12 a.m., the moment when Elena's heartbeat would return and the silence would break. As the seconds passed, Liam repeated the words Elena had written in her final plea, "Set me free?" His voice was barely a whisper, carried on the cold air between the walls. At precisely 2:12, the heartbeat started again. Soft at first, then steadily growing louder until it filled the room with a pulsing rhythm that seemed to synchronize with his own breath. Suddenly, the plaster on the warm spot began to crumble, revealing a narrow crack that widened slowly. Through the fissure, faint light spilled out, bathing the room in an eerie glow. From the shadows stepped Elena, no longer a ghostly silhouette, but a fully formed apparition. Her eyes clear, her expression peaceful yet weary. She looked at Liam, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling but real. "You listened?" Liam reached out, trembling, but his hand passed through her form like mist. Still, the warmth of the locket against his chest flared bright, and the heartbeat slowed, then stopped entirely. The oppressive silence lifted, replaced by a calm stillness that felt like release. Elena's figure began to fade, dissolving into the light. "Live," she said softly. "Remember me." The crack sealed itself, the wall smooth once more. Liam sank back against the floor, exhausted but relieved. The apartment no longer felt haunted. Instead, it was quiet in a way that promised healing, not fear. In the days that followed, Liam found peace. The heartbeat was gone, replaced by the steady thrum of his own life. He kept Elena's journal and locket close, a reminder of the story he uncovered and the soul he helped set free. The silence, once a prison, had become a testament, a heartbeat remembered beyond death. The first morning without the heartbeat felt surreal. Liam awoke to silence, so profound it was almost unsettling. No rhythmic thumping echoing through the walls. No warmth beneath his hand. Just the ordinary sounds of the city outside his window. He went about his day with a strange lightness. The weight that had burdened him for weeks finally lifted. Yet, beneath his relief was a growing sense of responsibility. Elena's story wasn't just a haunting. It was a reminder, a testament to forgotten voices silenced by neglect and cruelty. Liam shared the journal with a local historian, who confirmed its authenticity and arranged for it to be preserved in the city archives. The locket he kept, wearing it as a symbol of connection, a silent promise to remember. Neighbors who had once dismissed his strange behavior now noticed a change. Liam smiled more, spoke more freely, and even started inviting friends over again. The apartment felt like home once more. At night, though, Liam sometimes caught the faintest echo of a heartbeat, not in the walls, but in his own chest, a gentle reminder of a bond formed beyond life and death. He knew Elena was finally free. Weeks had passed since the heartbeat ceased, but Liam still felt Elena's presence, not as a haunting, but as a quiet companion in the silence. One evening, as twilight bled to the curtains, he sat by the warm spot in the wall, locket in hand, journal open on his lap. A soft breeze stirred the pages, and the room seemed to pulse with a gentle rhythm. Then, barely audible, came a whisper, not desperate, not pleading, but serene. "Thank you." The voice breathed, tender and faint, fading slowly into the stillness. Liam closed his eyes, feeling a profound peace wash over him. Elena's story, once trapped in shadows and silence, had found light and voice through him. Her heartbeat, once a ghostly pulse behind the walls, now lived in memory, an echo of resilience and release. As he stood and turned away, the apartment felt warmer, as if carrying the last whisper of a soul finally at rest. And in that quiet, Liam knew the silence was no longer empty. It was filled with the heartbeat of remembrance,